The Israelis want all the land in the West Bank to be part of the land of Israel.
I'd rather have my son simply settling there and feeling it's his country and continuing the job of what my family did 200 years ago when they came to this country.
They are building Jewish settlements all over the West Bank in order to prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state.
If we are going to try to settle the conflict, we must compromise. We must believe that we are going to live here with the Arabs as our neighbors. I believe that in the future, we are going to achieve peace.
After their victory in the 1967 war, the Israelis annexed Arab East Jerusalem and started building. Jerusalem the Golden was set in a ring of concrete. Government offices, flats, a new hospital, new buildings for the university. What's happening now is that the construction boom, almost over inside Israel, is pushing out into the West Bank. This is the Judean wilderness, where Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. This week, the first Jewish commuters move into these new flats. An army of Arab construction workers is putting the finishing touches. A year ago, the Bedouin had this place to themselves. Soon, this new road will make it 5 minutes commuting time from Jerusalem. This is the West Bank, but the Israeli government provides the water, electricity, and telephones. Jerusalem is spilling over into the West Bank like London spills into Essex or Surrey. The West Bank, or as Menachem Begin has taught the Israelis to call it by its ancient biblical names, Judea and Samaria, makes two deep salients into Israel, north and south of Jerusalem. It's understandable that the Israelis are concerned about security. It's only 40 miles from the River Jordan to the sea, under 10 miles from the nearest point on the West Bank to Tel Aviv, 3 to the Israeli parliament in Jerusalem. So many of the first new settlements were almost military posts along the line of the Jordan. What's happening now is that clusters of new settlements, more like suburbs, are springing up around Jerusalem and within commuting distance of Tel Aviv. The word settlements covers many different kinds of Jewish colonies on the West Bank. Kfar Etzion is a religious community founded between the two world wars. Many of its members were massacred by the Arab Legion in 1948. Some of their children are among those who came back to rebuild in 1967. To most Israelis of any political party, it will be almost unthinkable to give up this place. Rimonim is a far more fragile place. It's in Cherokee country, on the Alon Road, just behind the Jordan River frontier. Just 25 Israeli families live here. There's a kindergarten, a primary school, a grocery, one workshop where they load tape cassettes. Most of the men drive into Jerusalem to work. Why have they come to live here on this bleak hilltop?
Having a Jewish presence here. You know, we feel if there's a Jewish presence here, then there'll be less likelihood that things will be returned, and that's, you know, believing that this is, after all, Israel, and Jews should be living here, and Arabs should be living here, and everybody should be living here. It's a matter of, you know, establishing a Jewish presence here.
But it's not only ideological reasons that bring Israelis to the West Bank. The motives of the Tel Aviv professionals who are looking for country club living there are very different, as the real estate promoter explains.
These are prospective buyers who'd like to get a place to live and don't have the opportunity to do so in Israel itself.
Why?
Because of the exorbitant cost of land and building. Here, they have an opportunity to acquire a home on a quarter acre of ground at a price that they could never hope to see in Israel.
Will they work in Tel Aviv?
The idea is to make this a dorm suburb of Tel Aviv.
How do they feel about living in the middle of the West Bank?
Difficult to answer, but I should imagine it's acceptable for those who would like to be here.
As the Israelis move in, the Arab farmers on their donkeys and mules could become a picturesque irrelevance. The Israeli government hopes to move in 100,000 new settlers in the next few years. That explains the West Bank Arabs' long-term fear that their towns and villages could degenerate into run-down ghettos under Israeli military occupation, hemmed in by trim Israeli suburbs with their own water, their own electricity, and their own law. On September the 1st, President Reagan asked for a freeze on settlements, but since then, the Israelis have stepped up the pace. Elias Freij, the mayor of Bethlehem, expresses the Arabs' fear and dismay.
Well, the Israelis have a clear policy. They want all the land in the West Bank to be part of the land of Israel. And in order to prevent the establishment of a Palestinian autonomy or homeland or state, they are building Jewish settlements all over the West Bank. If we lose our land, where do we belong to? What is left for us? To become tenants, living as landless people in our own country where we were born, where our people, our ancestors are buried? If Israel does not stop its settlement program, there will be nothing left for the Palestinian Arabs to claim or to talk about in the West Bank other than total surrender.
The chairman of the Israeli cabinet committee in charge of the settlements is Professor Yuval Ne'eman. I asked him, in view of the pressure for a freeze, what he would say to prospective settlers.
I tell them it's their country. I encourage them to do it. I'd rather have my son, who, let's say, is serving in that area, not serve as a military man and have simply feeling that it's in a military base or something like that, protecting his father living 15 miles behind him in Tel Aviv, but simply settling there and feeling it's his country and continuing the job and the movement of what my family did 200 years ago when they came to this country. When they came, they never imagined that there would be a line dividing it in a certain way. And to me now, that line is meaningless as well. But I'm ready. The Israeli government agreed to a solution in which there would be an autonomy to people living in that area. Okay, that's something that was agreed to by the Israeli government, but not to give it away.
Perhaps 90% of all Israelis accept that there should be some Israeli presence on the West Bank. But the opposition Labour Party opposes the Begin government's accelerated settlement program.
If we are going to try to settle the conflict, we must compromise. We must believe that we are going to live here with the Arabs as our neighbours. And I am an optimistic in my philosophy. I believe that in the future we are going to achieve peace.
Maybe eventually the opposition will succeed in persuading the Israelis that their security doesn't depend on having a settlement on every hilltop on the West Bank. But in the meantime, as the peace talks drag on, nobody should be under any illusion. As long as Menachem Begin is Prime Minister, he's going to continue pouring in settlers as fast as he can afford. And these weekend home buyers are going to change the political balance in the Middle East. Godfrey Hodgson, ITN Channel 4, Elkanah on the West Bank.